he could start knocking on the door, and I'll have to bail out at 2 minutes to 2 or something.
No worries. So we're live, guys. Welcome to the show. Sorry for the little bit of a late start today. Just running around so quickly that I could not put my contact lenses in. That's how crazy busy I was today. It's one of those days I just actually just forgot to, and when I got downstairs, I'm like, holy cow. Anyway, here we are. So we've got the trade deadline coming up. We got lots of stuff. I've been skating on my ice at night. I posted some Instagram pictures last night of me stoning my daughter with the glove save to end all glove saves. So I wanted to show you guys all that for a second, because I'm just that good.
Jeez. Okay.
I don't know. I try. But let's see.
Cadre.
Yeah. No, it's really here we go. So here it is. Let me see if I can bring this up. I think I can. Let's see. And then we're going to talk about, of course, all kinds of things today, including a little bit of Alexander Ovechkin, I guess, but mainly trade rumors and other things that are going on. So let me see if this is working here. Come on.
I just inserted the chat in the blog.
Oh, nice. Perfect. So I'll show this later. Let's just start into this. Oh, here it is. Hold on. Sorry, maybe I'm wrong. 1 second. Maybe this will work. Yeah, here we go. So this is me on the rink. Here, I'll pause this up here. This is, of course, my excellent form, my glove save there. Just my daughter coming in. We were working the other night with her, and she's been man, it's so funny. She's been getting really good at goal, and so I was trying to show her. I was just trying to show her some glove hand stuff, which was always my strength. But she's definitely one of those girls. She's got crazy quick feet, and she's just starting to play hockey. So maybe making a little bit of a switch from the god awful sport of soccer.
As my friends who I played road hockey with back in the day would attest, I was a pretty good goaltender, but I had a tendency to overdo things when I made a great save, and I made a save on my friend with a glove hand, and basically started, just
nice.
Showing him up, showing the glove, showing the ball, and then the next game he ended up high sticking me across the face.
That'll learn you. Well, here's my daughter wearing her Mighty Ducks jersey, which is so cool, by the way. Someone sent me this Mighty Ducks jersey. Shoot, here, just gonna make it smaller here. Here we go. That's me again. All right, so this is her, and this is really, really cool. So she's got someone sent her Mighty Ducks jersey. So here she is. This is making her transition, but she's getting good at the glove hand too. So the cameras are out there. The ice is phenomenal because we're having this incredible cold spell in the east. So just for everybody else, it's miserable. But if you've got an ice rink in your backyard, it's heaven right now. This is the best as it gets. I was out there last night at 2 in the morning putting more water on, and that's how it goes. All right, so let's get started with the show.
What's the temperature there? Because it's so cold here that the ice conditions would not be good. When it gets down to below zero, the ice isn't as good as.
Oh yeah, no, we're right around 8.
Okay,
so that's pretty good. I think the butter zone is between 5 and 15. It feels like it's incredible when you get there. It's just, you can literally put another fresh layer on, and it'll freeze in 5 minutes, and it's beautiful. So yeah, we're having a blast. Everybody's out there. My wife's getting better. She's learning how to lift the puck, and we're having some fun times out there every night now. Everybody's getting, of course, fortunately the boy took a fall, and that's why he's out. So anyway, we'll start the show. It's the 18th, right?
That is correct.
Okay, it's the 18th of February.
And it is Wednesday. It's not Friday.
Wednesday. I was really surprised how many people liked our little thing yesterday, because I thought it was kind of lame, our going through the statistics. But I got going through the wins and losses of teams. I got so many comments about it. Did we give the Flyers a loss last night to Columbus? We did, right?
We did, yeah.
Yes.
You said they had trouble against Columbus.
Oh yeah, and that game was. We'll talk about it, but let's start. Here we go. It's Wednesday, February 18th. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, February 18th, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast where Mike, Josh, Kevin, and guests come on board Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock to teach you all, or not teach you, but to inform you on all that's going on in the hockey world. We leave the teaching to you. Anyway, we're going to get into a bunch of things today. We have a little bit of Ovechkin fun to talk about, and not just his potentially getting a PhD, but more stuff. But and let's start there actually. Then we'll go into the trade rumors because we got some interesting rumors flying around because things are really heating up. Mike, why don't you describe the scene for us so those who aren't familiar, just waking up, what happened to Ovechkin last night?
I mean, I was flipping through a number of games and saw the commentary last night that Ovechkin had hit Chris Letang on the back of the leg with his stick, and I didn't cast any judgments on it until I actually saw the replay, and it did. I don't know if it was purposeful or if it was just by happenstance. But I referred to it on Twitter as Ovechkin was clearly getting ready for spring training with the Washington Nationals because it looked like a baseball swing, and it hit Letang on the back of the I think it was right ankle,
right,
and he crumbled to the ice and fell into the boards, and he was carried off the ice. Now apparently he's okay, but it really looked.
I'm sorry, wasn't it Kunitz?
No. It was Letang.
There was the Kunitz hit last night too, though.
Well. The
Letang one's the one you're talking about. Yeah, but
the reaction of the Penguins afterward, because there was no penalty call, I believe.
Right. Yes.
Kunitz and I think it was Downey went after Ovechkin, and then for the rest of the game, it got a little bit frisky between the two teams who don't like each other. But again, this is another in a long line of Ovechkin questionable situations. Here we go. I mean,
here it is. So it happens right there.
It's just. It's a
definite. Unmistakable chop. The puck's there, but he's not going for the puck. Ovechkin's feisty. Ovechkin's been suspended before. This is nothing new with Alexander. He's very emotional, plays on that edge all the time. Letang, who seems to lead the league in getting people suspended, which tells you something that Letang is one of these guys who definitely gets under people's skin to the point where they'll do something that could potentially get them suspended. But what are your thoughts on this one, Kevin?
Well, I'm not going to defend Ovechkin. That chop, of course, is a chop that we see regularly in the NHL. That's standard operating procedure. It doesn't make it right. I'm just saying, he's not the only player in the league that plays like that and uses that as a weapon. But I'm just watching it over and over again. I had seen it this morning as well. The more you watch it, the more purposeful it looks.
Yeah, it does. It's a real heavy backswing. We're not talking about the difference between this chop and many chops is he goes back, holds his stick up in the air for a second.
Is this Alex Ovechkin or Bryce Harper?
Very specific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this going to be? Is this going to be coming? I know there was no penalty, but they're not going to bring this up at the league at all.
Boy, I don't know. That's a good. To me, it's one that you got to look at.
Yeah, I think so too. And I know it's Ovechkin, I know it's a playoff run and everything like that, but
it really got into the Penguins' head for the rest of the game. Especially they went after him and Ovechkin backed off. Kunitz was trying to cross-check him across the chest and get him to drop the gloves, and he wouldn't do it. And then afterward, a couple minutes later, there was it wasn't a Pier 6 brawl, but you had like Eric Fair and LaPierre and Downey and all these guys on the ice trying to get things started.
Well, here's the Kunitz thing a little bit too. I'll show you this. This followed it up. This is what I was talking about for a second there. Sorry, before. But this is the Kunitz play here, and
this is, I believe, this is if this is what I'm thinking about. This is after the incident because Kunitz
is right
after the face-off.
Yep, it's right after the incident, and it Okay, here we go. Let me put it up here for you. Here we go. And then, so it goes back. This is the end of it. You'll see a repeat back. This is Ovechkin leveling Kunitz, but this is Kunitz first going after Ovechkin. Which is, and then Ovechkin just jawing with him the whole way up the ice, and then then he gets his shot in on him at the end here.
Right.
So
Which is Ovechkin doing what a lot of people have complained about what Dion Phaneuf does. Dion Phaneuf doesn't want to fight because he's the best defenseman on the Leafs, and he has been told, don't get taken out of the game because you're our best defenseman. And other teams challenge him, and he doesn't drop the gloves. Why? Well, Ovechkin's not going to drop the gloves because he's the best player on the Caps. But when you play like that, and when you do things like he did to Letang, I think you have to sort of like back up what you do. And have you ever seen Alex Ovechkin fight? If maybe 5 times in his career, I can't remember.
Yeah, I would have to look that up. Mike, I don't remember seeing him fight. I'm sure he has, but I don't remember it. I agree with you in this situation, and I think it's this is where the code gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, because and even in the Penguins' reaction to this, and I'll bring this up so we can sort of debate it, because I don't think there is a right answer. Now, Mike alluded to the fact that it really threw the Penguins off their game, and I agree completely with what he said there. Yeah. And my thought as I'm watching that is, I thought they learned about this now. The Flyers get into their heads, and then they suddenly can't play the way they need to play in order to be effective. And they have to get past that. You cannot be a championship caliber team if you allow those type of things to get under your skin. Now, but saying that, what if they had done nothing? Today, would we be saying, well, the Penguins didn't even challenge Ovechkin? Probably we would. We would be saying that. Where was their, the toughness? This is why they were bringing some guy in. And I think, just as if Ovechkin fights in that situation, we say, what are you doing? You're the best player on the team, Right. But now, how do I personally feel? The thing that bothers me the most in the NHL is when a guy makes a clean hit and then he's obligated to fight. I hate that.
Yes.
If you make a clean hit, you shouldn't have to fight. Yes. That's just part of the game. You should be celebrated, but and if you want to get back at the guy, then hit him with a clean hit. Hit him as hard as he hit the guy.
Right.
But in this case, when you have clearly gone outside the bounds of the rule book and attacked Letang, I think Ovechkin does have an obligation to fight if in that situation.
And the thing is, if Pittsburgh would have responded, and I hesitate to bring up this comparative, but you remember Steve Moore hit Marcus Naslund. Steve Moore is, like his brother Dominic Moore, was sort of like a guy who got underneath the other team's skins.
Right.
And then Bertuzzi came back and did what he did to Moore, and then obviously the situation that we know about. What if LaPierre or Downey had gone back and taken a baseball swing at Ovechkin's leg and broken his leg? I mean, what I'm saying is, like, you have a situation there that could have decompensated into something that would have been tragic. And I think, the thing is, I think it's incumbent upon Ovechkin not to go down that road. He's a star player. He should be playing like a star player. He shouldn't be taking baseball swings at Chris Letang's ankle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point of why he's almost becomes fair game, is because he should not be playing like that.
Right.
And he is the star player, and for the most part, you leave the star players alone. But if they get outside, there's a certain behavior that's expected from star players, and if they're going to play like a guy who wants to get involved in those kind of things, they're going to pay a price for that. And I think that's where you're at with Ovechkin. But saying all that, the whole thing is so complicated, trying to sort out what's the right thing. We could debate all day about it, and I might feel differently tomorrow than I do today, because I mean it's complicated. It really is. And as I said, I felt exactly the same way Mike did when I watched that, and then I thought, but if they did nothing, I'd say, where are you? Why aren't you defending your teammates? So that's when the code gets confusing.
But I think the one thing that's disturbing here, though, from a Pittsburgh point of view, is, and we've seen this the last few years regarding Montreal and Boston. Washington and Ovechkin get underneath the skin of the Penguins, just like the Canadiens get underneath the skin of the Bruins. And no matter how well the Bruins play, no matter how good Tuukka Rask is, no matter how big Chara is, for some reason, guys like Brendan Gallagher and Dale Weiss get underneath the skin of Milan Lucic and most of the Bruins players, and any advantage that they have in terms of being a better team, and that's arguable right now, is completely washed away when they play Montreal and get underneath their skins. And I think Pittsburgh, if they match up with Washington in the playoffs, I mean, that could be a distinct advantage for the Caps over the Penguins, where normally the Penguins would probably be the favorite in that series.
To me, it comes down to this. The Penguins scored 1 goal last night, and Steve Downey got it. Mm-hmm. And so you get a game like this, and this has happened against the Flyers too, a chippy game, and the Stars don't. Crosby's way of retaliating is to put some points on the board, and he doesn't do that. Malkin, same thing. This is where you have to question the focus. I mean, they get the 1 goal in the beginning of the second period, from Steve Downey, and you've got to do better. I mean, Crosby has, I think, something like 2 goals in the last 10 games. Crosby's really on a Crosby slump, for Crosby right now. For what it's worth, he's had these moments that he's not having a killer year this year statistically, but he's still having a great season. So I'm not questioning Crosby's season or anything like that. But in a situation like this, I almost feel like the Penguins look like a Western Conference team when they in certain situations as well. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me, the Penguins want to play like when you watch the Penguins play the Blackhawks on the weekend. It was a great game. You watch that game, and those two teams go back and forth, and it's just great hockey. And the Blackhawks are they're a tough team too. They're a physical team as well, but that doesn't become the main factor of the game. But then when the Penguins play certain Eastern Conference teams like the Bruins, Flyers, Caps, they sort of get out of that situation, and then they look like, wow, the East is a really tough, is going to get tougher conference, and it's almost as if they're not built like an Eastern Conference team at times, for what that's worth, and we've seen it before. And I mean, I don't know if you can say the West is not as physical as the East, but I think there's a lot more of this kind of stuff that happens in the East still, to me. Maybe because there just isn't the talent level in the East necessarily, but there's definitely more of the chippiness that happens in the East. Is there anything to that, Kevin, do you think?
Well, I think the style of play was a lot, the differences were a lot more pronounced several years ago. I think now, and I think bringing the Red Wings to the East has played a small role in that as well. You take them out of the West, and, they were a very non-physical team, and there's two kinds of toughness, as we know. I mean, there's those who can fight, and then there's people who can take it. The Blackhawks and the Red Wings were teams that just can take it, but they really can't dish it out. But they can take whatever you throw at them.
Right.
So like the Western Conference has some big centers. And that that plays a role, but I think you pointed it out statistically. The differences now aren't as great as they were just several years ago. So, but I do see what your point is. I think that we see more of this in the East, and it feels that way to me. But I don't have any statistics to back that up.
Well, I mean, the emphasis with Pittsburgh under Mike Johnston has been more of a puck possession game, and they've really sort of gone on to the style that, and teams like St. Louis and Chicago and LA are all puck possession teams. They're all tops in the analytics crowd, and that's what you might be shooting at here, Rack, is the fact that Crosby's offensive statistics are down a bit, but he's still having a great year. So is Malkin, but they're more, I think, devoted towards a puck possession and a defensive game. That's why Fleury has, I think, his career high in shutouts. I think he has 7 or 8. So right. I think they're trying to play a more disciplined two-way game that will be more effective in the playoffs. I mean, the problem is that, like you said, they scored 1 goal last night against a team that, Washington's been one of the better teams in the second half of the season. Holtby's playing great. Ovechkin is putting up really good offensive numbers. They're no slouch right now. So I mean, it's not out of the realm that Washington should be, competing with the Penguins. It's just I think the Penguins, Right now, I think they're a little bit incomplete. They get Perron, he helps out their offense, but defensively, Ehrhoff has been out, and I don't know if Letang is going to miss any time. But I mean, Rutherford is looking to add people before the deadline. I mean, he thinks that team still needs a bit of improvement if they're going to make a serious run for the Cup.
Right. And the interesting thing, and then we'll move on to rumors. But I'll show you this. That we look at the standings for a second here. You can see in the East now that oh man, I had it right here. There it is. Okay. All right. So looking in the East now, you've got all these numbers here, but which is usually what you see when you see a bunch of standings. Sorry, you've got all these numbers here. Anyway, no, but there's a lot of numbers, and the Penguins now have fallen to third in the Metropolitan Division. The Rangers have 2 games at hand on the Penguins, so that falling to third is a legitimate third. The Caps are 1 point behind them, so the Penguins are almost in the wild card spot right now. Yeah. And the other number that's crazy is the plus 18 goal differential for the Penguins. Versus when you think of the Penguins and you think about how they play, that's a really low number for the Penguins at this point in the season. I mean, the Rangers are plus 38, and you don't think of the Rangers as a powerhouse offensive team. They've been very good offensively this year and very good defensively as well. But Tampa's a plus 32. Montreal's a plus 27, and the Penguins are a plus 18. I mean, that kind of stuff is just not what you would expect at all, from this team. And so there's something wrong. There's something amiss with this, with this group. And whether or not, I mean, they can obviously get it together. We can see that they can play against anyone. You saw it against Chicago. They're a tough team. They're one of the most exciting teams to watch, but they definitely, haven't been the dominant team that we've looked for.
Yeah, the biggest problem the Penguins have had, and we've talked about this before in relation to the Columbus Blue Jackets injuries were the big story. I mean, the Penguins have been beat up all season. Malkin has been out for an extended period of time. They lost Mata, the fine young defenseman, who was really crucial, in my opinion, to their transition game. A lot of their players have been out for extended periods. Even Crosby has missed some games with the mumps, and the mumps went through the team. They really have not had their entire team. Hornquist has been out, and it's really hard to know where the Penguins are at because they have this new system, but they've never had their entire team healthy at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I mean, I think that's a factor, but everybody has injuries, and I think your point is well taken. They really have not been. They've been good, and they've played a style I think that makes them better or more prepared for the postseason. But they haven't been quite as good as I'm sure fans would like to see them be. And I think we have seen some improvement in the Eastern Conference with the rise of the Islanders. The rise of the Washington Capitals. Tampa Bay is a better team. I think Montreal's improved. Going back to the comparison in the West, we've had more teams improve in the East than we have in the West.
Yeah.
And I think that's played a role in where the point values are for the Penguins as well. But that's a real battle. And the one thing I would say though, and I had this conversation with a member of the Penguins organization, there's really, in my opinion, no advantage to finishing any particular place in the standings in that division. I would think it would be better to be. I'd rather face the Islanders, to be truthful, than the Rangers or the. I mean, and I love the Islanders, I do, but they haven't really been there before. Their defense isn't quite as good as either the Rangers or the Washington Capitals. So I think I'd rather face the Islanders. So if you're going to be a number 4 seed and the Islanders win it, you'd probably be happy with that.
Especially with the advantage that the Rangers have had traditionally over the Penguins. I mean, Kevin, right now, I've said this for about a month. The East is wide open. There is not one team in the East that is not the perfect team with no weaknesses. Everybody has a chink in their armor, and you can make a case for almost every one of these teams having a failing that is mortal, that will prevent them from winning. But one of them is going to win. It's whoever can overcome that failing.
Right. Let me ask you this, though, and I think this is a fair question, because I don't think we've given them paid enough homage to them. Haven't you become more and more impressed by the Montreal Canadiens as we've gone this season? I mean, I know I have. Like, I watched them twice last week, and I said to myself, man, they're just better than I ever give them credit for, because I just thought it was Price, carrying him, and and he's played a huge role in that. But they know how to play close, 2-1, 3-2 hockey games. They get just enough goals. Yeah.
They work harder than most teams. That's the big thing.
Yeah, they're a very hard-working team.
Yeah,
they are, and they've got 3 lines that are almost all the same. And they throw them out there. The 3 lines. There really is. I mean, I know they have technically a top line, but I think their 3 lines are pretty much the same.
Thierry is perfect for that team. He gets the most out of them, and he gets them playing the way they need to play to be effective. And I've been impressed with them.
And we can use that, and we can use this to a bridge to the trade rumors. I mean, last night, Bergevin, Rick Dudley, Larry Carriere, and a couple other scouts were in Toronto scouting the Panthers-Leafs game. And I'm sure they were scouting both teams because, as we know, the Panthers have 4 UFA forwards. The Leafs, we've already talked about that ad nauseum. I mean, the one thing, I mean, they're looking to add a defenseman because apparently they're not happy with Emelin. But what you just said, Kevin, they scored 2 goals against Detroit. They scored a goal against Toronto and then 1 in the shootout. The thing that is going to prevent them potentially from advancing in the playoffs is being able to score. And I think that's where, Bergevin may change that philosophy of not going for a rent-a-player this year because he's got the cap room, and if they can acquire a few goals, that might be the gateway for them winning, at least getting to the final.
Well, that is a good transition, Mike. Even though you're not supposed to transition, just kidding. Now this is there we go. This to a little bit of rumor chart stuff today for us. 3 players stay up: Bozak, Eberle, and Mikhailuk. And Montreal's on all 3 of these players' lists. Not in great demand. Although I think that this could change. And Bergenheim is another name that they like a lot. Bozak seems as if there's a I want to start with him first, but actually no, let's start with Eberle first, because to me the most interesting thing I heard over the last 24 hours was talking to a source that I really trust, who told me that Boston was going to be the one who went the hardest after Eberle and was convinced of this. And he said that I know that Boston's working on something. They're going to have to give up players. It's going to be a big major deal, but that Boston doesn't want to be in the muck of this playoff, and they need to do something to spur things along, and that Eberle was their guy. So as you see, I boosted them to the top of this list for me personally. But what are your thoughts on Eberle, Kev?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense for Boston to go hard after him. I think he's exactly what they need to sort of give their team a shot in the arm. I mean, he's still a relatively young player. He's not past his prime. He's in his prime, and there's a lot of potential there. He's been with a poor team his entire career, and I think he got with a good team. Like I think of him as a pretty smart player, and I think if he got with a coach, like Claude Julien in Boston, I think you'd get more out of him. I think that would be a very good fit. It makes a lot of sense they would go after him, but I personally don't believe the Oilers should trade or are going to trade Eberle.
Okay.
I just think that you're not re-scraping this ice. We're not starting over. I mean, you're just sort of adjusting to it, and to me, and you're going to take a step backwards if you get rid of Eberle. I mean, he's arguably in your top 3 players. So, why would you do that? But I've heard the same rumors. His name has been out there all season, and I guess certainly anything is possible, and it makes a lot of sense in Boston. But my money's on him being an Oiler.
I heard Eriksson and Krug would be involved in this, and that's what I heard, and that would be, there's 2 pretty good names. Krug could be a good fit. Krug is what Edmonton needs in a lot of ways. I think Krug would be a great fit in Edmonton.
Yeah, I don't like that deal, but yeah.
No, and I don't know if Krug is the type of defenseman that Edmonton needs. I mean, they already have Justin Schultz, so you already have a one-way defenseman.
Right.
I mean, it's funny.
I think Krug is one. I think Krug is one way, but I don't think of him as one way as Justin Schultz. I think that.
Well, no, nobody's.
He's a lot more physical than Justin Schultz.
Nobody's one way as Justin Schultz.
He's small too, and
Right.
he's never really going to be a strong defensive defenseman just because he doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, this adds up when you consider the the showcasing of Malcolm Subban, which is supposedly going to occur tonight. The rumors from Nick Kyprios of Sportsnet mentioning that the Bruins are going to probably be willing to shop a veteran like Dennis Seidenberg or Louis Eriksson to open up cap space. If that's the case, then they may be opening up that cap space.
I'm going to stop that for a second. I don't think there's any way that they move Seidenberg.
Well, I'm just telling you what Kyprios.
Yeah, no,
I don't predict
think that's a team that that's one player that they really need to make a playoff run and in the playoffs. And they when he's been out of the lineup in the past, they've struggled.
Yeah, I can't see how they move Seidenberg after losing Boychuk when their defense is already a little soft. I mean, Seidenberg is even though he's getting a little old and he's had some injury problems, he's still a very stable veteran presence on their blue line. But I mean.
But you could see Malcolm Subban as an Oiler. That would make sense. That would be something that would be a very good fit.
I see that makes a lot more sense than the other two players you mentioned. I mean, Eriksson, certainly has value. He's been a 30-goal scorer in the past. We know that he knows where the net is. But he hasn't been the same player in Boston that he was in Dallas. And when you look at his age, why would the Oilers be going in that direction? I just don't like the logic of that.
They need some players like that, though. They need some experienced guys who can come in. I mean, he's not old.
But the reason you need experienced players like that is to complement players like Hall and Eberle. If you trade Eberle,
for sure.
If you trade Eberle to get the guy, then to me you've defeated the purpose. Then you need some some younger players. Now we're factoring in, of course, that next year they're going to have another.
See, that's the thing, right? So, how many of these players can you carry? I mean, Nugent Hopkins, Eberle, Hall.
Well, remember.
I mean, you're talking about these. There's a lot of players here now that do the same kind of thing.
Let's start here then. I mean, the argument we have to have in this regard is that if you're the GM of the Oilers right now, do you make up your mind that you keep Nugent Hopkins, Hall, and Eberle? Because I do. I mean, to be successful, you have to have, three great offensive players, and you already got them. The problem is not with those three players.
But you have another one coming in, though. You have another one coming in.
Well, maybe, but it could be Hanifin.
Could be Hanifin. That's true.
And you're forgetting that Draisaitl will be back. I mean, he's a number 3 pick overall. He'll probably
you got Yakupov there too. You've got so many.
But I would trade Yakupov.
Yeah. I would too, and I think Montreal's heavily after Yakupov, and I've heard that all year.
Well, I would think, Kevin, that they would trade one of Yakupov and Eberle, but not both of them, because you can't. You can move one of them, move a scoring winger if you have another scoring winger, but I can't see them moving both of them, because then you create the problem of having too much strength up the middle and not having enough scoring power on the wings.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I wouldn't say they would never trade Eberle, but if you're going to trade Eberle, you have to get back more than Torrey Krug and Eriksson.
Yeah, and Eriksson. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I definitely I'm not saying that's just what I heard. I agree that doesn't seem to make enough sense, and I know Eberle has been though. However, I know teams have discussed him with the Oilers, so I know he's not untouchable. I know Philadelphia had a long discussion with him last year, and it almost happened. With Eberle. So it's something that could happen. And I just think that Eberle is more valuable to a team like Boston than he is to Edmonton, just because of the kind of player he is. He's the kind of guy you want. He's obviously shown he's a clutch player. He's going to score the big goal here and there. He's going to help you. You could see Eberle scoring an overtime goal for the Bruins in the playoffs. That would be the kind of thing Eberle could do, right? Where in Edmonton, he's not going to be in the situation to score clutch goals. And we've seen that's based at this point. That's where he is, right?
Well, the hope is though that isn't a forever.
Right.
No,
for sure.
No.
For sure. Well, let's go to Tyler Bozak as well. Bozak is from what I've been told, wants out of Toronto. It's not like one of these. He's demanded a trade, but Bozak's one of their centers. One of the things Toronto needs in a big way is a center. and he's their top center.
De facto,
De facto, I know, but he is their top center.
Yes.
I think he's a legitimate second or third center in the NHL. I think even a second on a half decent team.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, Calgary, and Montreal. And it's so funny how all the Montreal-Toronto rumors are going on right now that it's very silly to think that these teams are talking about trading with each other, but they have recently, and I guess they're just they're at different points in their life cycles right now, right? So one's on the top, one's on the bottom. So
exactly. And plus they talked trade last year. The aborted Josh George's Cody Franzen deal. It would have been a Montreal-Toronto deal, and it would have been significant players. But
now what I heard. Let me finish one more thought, and then I'll let you go, Mike, on this. With the loss of Cody Franzen, suddenly I was told this, and this makes sense. It's one of those things. Cody Franzen's gone, so now you have to think in terms of replacing him. Keith Yandle's out there. He makes more sense in Toronto than ever before. Bozak is a guy, that would make some sense in Arizona. Not that he's all that you would throw into a deal like that, but there, you'd have to, I think, give out more than Bozak to get Yandle. But I still think that there's something to it. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I think Yandle makes absolutely no sense for Toronto in the sense that they're going through the full rebuild. You have a guy who's, a premier defenseman, but he's 1 year away from being an unrestricted free agent, unless their intent is to acquire him and then flip him next year at the deadline for assets. I think if they trade Bozak, they're looking for draft picks or prospects. Yandle, the Leafs like their youth on the blue line. They had a young kid, Petter Granberg, who's a pick from 4 years ago, 22-year-old Swede. He played last night. Riley and Gardner. They have a few other kids like Stuart Percy, a former first-round pick, who they think is in the pipeline. I think that they're not replacing Franzen in a trade. They're not even replacing Phaneuf if they trade him in a trade. I think part of the rebuild is to allow their young players in the organization, who are cheaper contracts, to come in and to make some mistakes in the NHL, but to learn the NHL. And I don't think, unless they're going to do what they're doing with Olli Jokinen, which is flip him for a draft pick in the next couple weeks with Yandle, I don't think they'd be interested at all in Yandle.
Kevin?
Well, the way I view Bozak is, and I like him, is he's a B player, a solid B player, and when he's playing well, he might be a B plus.
Right.
But if I'm looking at it from the Coyotes' perspective, their entire run for the last few years have been filled full of guys like Bozak.
Mm-hmm.
They've got guys who aren't quite top level centers or top level forwards trying to fill those roles. And he's really better suited to be a number 2 center. And so I wouldn't mind having him if I was Arizona, but he's certainly not going to be a prime motivation for me as I'm trying to change my team. They need to get guys that are better than Bozak. They've had a lot of Bozaks there.
Yeah. And I continue to say, and you don't have them on the rumor chart, and this is just feel for me. It's not, and I have no source on this. I continue to say that the team that makes the most sense for Bozak is the Colorado Avalanche. He went to the University of Denver. They've liked him for a number of years, and I know that Toronto likes Ryan O'Reilly, and a deal where Bozak is somebody locked up at $4.2 million for another 3 years, which would represent cost certainty for a team, and a guy like O'Reilly who's going to probably walk as a UFA if he stays in Colorado through next year. That a deal around those two players makes a lot more sense than a deal of Bozak to a team like Phoenix, where like Kevin said, he's a secondary type of center, like a Vermette, like a Martin Hanzal, and doesn't really provide an upgrade for what they've already had. So I think that's more likely, or a deal to Montreal, as you have on the rumor chart.
Well, the thing about Bozak going to Colorado too is the fact that obviously they already have a McKinnon, they have a Duchesne there. He could settle in and be even a three center there.
Right.
No, that makes sense, and I could see him. I think they were one of the teams that was looking at him when he was coming out of college there, right? When the whole Bozak sweepstakes was going on. He's been quite the he's quite the player. Let's get to some news before we do our NHL simulator. What do you got, Josh, today?
Let's begin in Winnipeg. Looks like Kevin Cheveldayoff might soon be back at the trade table just a week after orchestrating the Evander Kane blockbuster deal. Matthew Perreault looks like he is likely done for the remainder of the regular season. That's according to head coach Paul Maurice. A significant lower body injury, and Drew Stafford as well is hurt, and he's good thing is right now he's just day to day. So that's two players the Jets are down right now. So possibly maybe Cheveldayoff will try to make another move.
It's a shame. Perreault's been so good for them.
Well, they were going to make a move even if they hadn't had these injuries, because I heard Cheveldayoff being interviewed saying that the trade with Buffalo opened up enough cap space for them to make another acquisition of probably a forward. Now I think it's the necessity is there with Perreault being out for the next month and a half, if that's the term of the injury, that they can go out and get themselves a guy like a Bergenheim or a Daniel Winnick or whoever. But it adds up, so I would expect him to make an acquisition before March 2nd.
I would say it's good. What else, Josh?
Let's talk about what's going on in Boston with the way the team has been not playing well, and a lot of people worried about their playoff hopes as they're quickly losing. They're losing their place in the standings. There's a couple of Boston columnists who are suggesting that maybe with the decline of the Boston Bruins, maybe it's time to deal Zdeno Chara. You guys heard about that at all?
Sounds like a good thing to write for a column.
Well, there's been two guys that have written it, and I believe even Haggerty had said something on Comcast Sportsnet TV show the other day that maybe it's time to deal Zdeno Chara.
I don't know. Kevin, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I mean, that's columnist perfect, column, an older player, geared up, trade him. I mean, I guess to me, I would feel if I was Chiarelli that if I can get in the playoffs, and right now they're in a playoff position, they have the ability to get to the final. I mean,
right.
We've seen this team, perform at a high level. I mean, they've got Bergeron, they have Krejci. These are two centers who have a long history of performing well in the postseason. So, but I take a look at it in the summer. I mean, everybody, nobody stays young forever, and at a certain point, it's diminishing return. So if you're an able manager, and Peter Chiarelli is, you have to consider that. But that's always a hard decision.
Yeah, you have to examine it. But I think, at the point at which you're okay trading him, you're not going to get back what you want to get for him. That might like when you get to the point where you're okay trading him, it's pointless.
See,
that's my feeling.
Well, it's never pointless. Yeah.
Not pointless, but you don't see those trades happen usually at that point. Like
Yeah, no, and it is hard, and his is particularly hard because generally if it's a guy that's been there forever, out of loyalty you just don't even consider it.
Right.
But,
unless he really wants out or something. Unless he wants a different.
Right. But in this case, he had a career before he got to Boston. It's not like he's been 20-year Boston.
Right, that's true. But he has won a cup with him, so there's that too. He's got.
You got to think of this too, and I think this is what Chiarelli point he would make. Think of that Boston defense now without Chara.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, everybody loves Dougie Hamilton, but he's been mistake prone this season.
Well, part of the reason the Bruins are where they are is because we did see that defense without
right,
Chara
and they're without Boychuk. Seidenberg is not getting any younger either.
Yeah.
So
they had a preview of what life would be like without Chara when he was out injured, and they actually did well for a while. But that could be, just overcompensation for a great player being out. But the thing is, I could make a case for a number of teams of tearing down a number of teams. Yeah. I can't make a case for the Boston Bruins. I mean, the core of that team, with the exception of Chara, is in their mid to late 20s. So how can columnists? I mean, it's perfect fodder for a columnist to say it's time to trade Chara because the law of diminishing returns. but he's still I think a top flight, top pairing defenseman. And unless you get somebody like say a Keith Yandel for him, somebody who can replace him, not adequately, but in terms of ice time, I can't see them doing it. So I just think it's
It's a real specific kind of situation where a team would need a Chara. That would be like a team that's like one player away from winning a Stanley Cup. Maybe would consider it, okay, we'll
Detroit.
go for it. And those teams don't have the cap space to put Chara in. So it's really kind of there's really no way of really making it happen for the most part. What else do you have, Josh?
Yeah, speaking of rumors, there's been a rumor going on for a while in Chicago that the Blackhawks would need to move a key player in order to better their team salary cap wise for next year, which obviously the cap's not going to be as high as originally hoped with a lot of teams. We've heard names like Patrick Sharp and Brian Bickle thrown around in context. Well, according to Pierre LeBrun, he says he's here to tell you that he doesn't believe Hawks GM Stan Bowman would move either player before March the 2nd, nor any of his core guys. He thinks the plan remains the same in Chicago, a quiet deadline other than perhaps adding a depth, experienced defenseman like a Scott Hannon type. I think the Blackhawks have 5 or 6 names on their radar as far as depth defensemen, and Hannon is one of them. That's according to Pierre LeBrun.
I've heard Grossman mentioned with them too. That's the kind of player, yeah, sure, you could go out and get, but this is a team. Remember that already is. I mean, this is kind of and nothing against Pierre LeBrun, but this is sort of another obvious one because this is a team that already won a Stanley Cup and proved they weren't going to throw. They've already gone the first Stanley Cup they won. They knew they were going to have to lose players in the summer, and they went with a lineup anyway, and they lost the players in the summer, but they won the Stanley Cup.
I mean, Pierre shot this down, and I think like we said yesterday, they don't have the cap room to do anything more than a tinkering move, and the last thing that the Blackhawks are going to do is mess with that core. I mean,
yeah, they'll let people go. I mean, I could definitely see Patrick Sharp moved in the summer for sure, but. Kevin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've said since the start of the year that the Blackhawks can't do anything. And you can always make a little minor deal as long as the guy's not making any money, and they could do something to that. In fact, that's Stan Bowman's history. Little minor deal, run Blad. No one paid attention to that, and he ended up being a nice little acquisition, and
that's a good point.
You can still do that. But in the summer, there are going to be issues, and just as you pointed out, that's when they deal with their problems. This is a good team; they're not going to fool around with it, and they got a chance to win it all, and they know that, and they'll use this team and saddle it up and ride it.
Right, one of the top teams. Josh, give us one more thing before we got to get going.
Oh, I had a couple other things.
Okay, we'll do a quickly. Thanks.
I'll do it quickly. Guys, have you ever wondered which teams typically populate the list of no-trade list? No teams that are on someone's no-trade list? ESPN's Craig Custance did. He contacted 10 agents and asked them to name the 3 most commonly listed teams. The results, number 1, Edmonton received 5 first-place votes. Winnipeg got 4. Buffalo got 1. Toronto and Ottawa also got votes. And it's kind of interesting there. I wanted to pass that.
Yeah. Very surprising. Very surprising.
Moving on. Last night, a little bit of all over Twitter was Olli Jokinen's comment. The one thing I noticed here, being here 2 days, is a lot of negative energy around here. Today, he's kind of backtracked a bit by saying, it's not like guys are negative in the room. What I meant is around the team, like from the media. It comes.
I never would have guessed this.
So he actually backtracked. I'm sure gave a little bit of crap about it.
It seems like it's such a positive place right now to be.
Saying a thing.
Speaking of the Leafs,
that's two. Let's get to the draft.
Speaking of the Leafs, we'll get this brief. Dion Phaneuf's injured hand, more rest needed. He won't play this weekend. Lupul talked about being rushed back from injury, said that he rushed back because of the desperate situation the Leafs were in. But as losses continue, it was time to shut it down. The thing you can lose sight of sometimes, it's still a great job. It's still fun. There can be a lot of worse situations. Decision to sit was made when it became clear we weren't making the playoffs, didn't want to take ice time away from the young guys.
Yeah.
I tell you guys, when they hear about the negativity in Toronto, for every one negative person, there's 9 who are most loyal fans. 95% of the people are completely behind us, and it's a special feeling.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with that.
They're completely behind you, losing every one of the last 24 games and finishing as low in the playoffs as you possibly can. He is in a fantasy land.
This is a long discussion, but we're not getting into it because I honestly think that I understand what he's saying here, even though I get it. I mean, there are many. We hear the negative fans more than we hear the positive fans for sure. People don't talk when they aren't complaining in general. So that's and yeah, I think 95% is a bit high, but I do think that there are a lot of people who are still behind the team. There are a lot of blind followers on every team, with every team.
Fans who want them to lose, Zach, right now are not negative fans. Fans who want them to lose are realistic fans. They're fans who realize that this team is going through a rebuild, and the only positive to be gleaned from the rest of the season is to get a high draft pick. That's all I'm saying. And
I'm with you. One other thing I want to throw out there too is that Del Zotto had a great game last night against the Columbus Blue Jackets and was not on the ice for the Flyers practice today. I know the Flyers are trying to re-sign him, but I also think that there were a ton of scouts last night. I think Del Zotto could be on his way out sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
That was we did predict that the Flyers would lose that game to Columbus last night, but that was a tough loss because they outshot the Blue Jackets 2-1. They outplayed them for most of the game, and then they got a couple really a terrible giveaway by LeCavier, and then a terrible goal on it by Emery. And it really was that was the kind of game when you're chasing like the Flyers are chasing. That was very disheartening to that team.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they have the Sabres in tomorrow night, which is a good bounce back game. But
especially since they got those 2 goals late in the second to tie up the game, and they were all enthused, and then they were sort of crushed with that.
It was the kind of game where you realize they need Mason back, they need Tiemann back, they need these guys back sooner than later, and if they can stay close, sooner than later they have a shot. So here's our draft simulator for today. We're gonna run it now, and this is a little spooky. Okay, the winner is the Buffalo Sabres. All right, so Buffalo's won again, but note this. The only 2 times we've run the draft lottery when Kevin Allen has not been on the podcast, the Buffalo Sabres have won. All right, so we've run this every time. Kevin's never seen the Sabres win. So they've won 2 of the last 3 after not winning the first 9.
So needless to say, the Sabres do not want Kevin in Toronto. When
right, Sabres fans should root against Kevin Allen being anywhere near the drawing of this. Because, the Sabres have won again. Holy cow, that's pretty funny. But again, the Oilers managed not to win this, and the Oilers. I mean, we talk about the Sabres the Oilers haven't won now, and then the 14 times we've done this, that's pretty crazy. Of course, you could argue that the Oilers had plenty of luck in the past.
Yeah, exactly. They should be exempt.
If it were up to me, I'm telling you right now, one of the big rules, if I could sit down and make my 10 rules to change the NHL, which will be a blog of mine eventually. One of them would be that you can only win the draft lottery once every 5 years. That there's no way you can win the number 1 spot more than 3 years. 5. I mean, if you're
I think it'll be 3. I think it would be 3. I don't think there would be a problem, especially with the draft, with the new draft lottery rules where it's 1 through 4. Where the team that is 30th place could finish as low as 4th now.
Yeah.
I bet you anything that they'll have, some rule that the team can't be the first pick. Once every 3 years.
See, to me, 5 years makes sense because if you can't turn it around in 5 years, there's something you're not doing things right. Like you should be able to turn things around in 5 years in the NHL. That's why I go with 5. But the fact because the Oilers getting all these picks has been not good for the NHL in general. I mean, those players should be spread around the league a little bit more.
Based on Josh's story, I mean that's the only way that the Oilers can get good players because nobody wants to be traded there.
And it's funny you say that, and it's true, and I know that this is tough for Edmonton and Winnipeg, but there are also, to be fair to those cities, there are players who absolutely love to play there, and it goes both ways. So yeah, you could say that the majority of players maybe don't want to, live in Winnipeg or Edmonton, but there are also a lot of players from around there that love playing there, and players who aren't from around there love playing there. So. I mean, no one minded playing for the Edmonton Oilers in the '80s. That's all I'll say. I mean, it's a different thing. I mean, I bet you if you did that poll back in the back when they were winning Stanley Cups, it would be a little different, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, if a team's losing, I mean, right now, Edmonton's not a fun place to play if you're on a team that's losing and you have to live through that weather. But if you're on a team that's winning and you have to live through that weather, I think you'll deal with it perfectly fine. Anyway, that's it, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We'll be back tomorrow on Thursday. We may or may not have a guest. We don't know if we'll have somebody yet tomorrow, but we're working on it. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.